How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to the Finding Purpose podcast. Today, my guest, Sean Degnan, friend of mine, always has been a purpose-driven individual, someone who I looked up to in regards to the way he tackles the tasks at hand. Sean's the founder of ACE, Action Cultivates Excellence, men's personal development program. Additionally, he's also the owner of the Sail House restaurant over there in Terrytown, I believe, and beautiful views. I've actually had the privilege of visiting there. Had an awesome meal. Sean, great to have you, man. It's been a while since we've actually sat down and had a really good conversation. A lot of times we were usually at networking events, and you know how the networking events go. So having the opportunity to sit down with you 101 and just really dig into your journey and how it started and how it progressed and where you are today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, from where you began, and where you grew up and whatnot.
Yeah. So, number one, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate, your platform and everything you're putting out. I envy and, I see what you're doing transitioning spaces, which is something I've done, and it's a difficult thing to do. So, kudos to you, and, you're doing great work out there. So I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so I'm a Westchester native, grew up, born and raised in Irvington, New York. I spent some time up in Springfield, Massachusetts for college, played football up there for 4 years. Had a crazy ride and just, an awesome network of guys that I ended up meeting, and a lot of people that I'm still friends with today, that I do business with as well. So I spent some time up there and ended up coming home from school and worked down in the South Bronx for 9 years or so. I was down in Hunts Point. I managed a wholesale produce distribution company. So I had a family
Okay.
friend that had this large company that's really international. They ship, and they ended up starting a smaller company called Gotham Fresh, and that was the supermarket division. So we did tri-state. Supermarket basically distribution, so all fruits and vegetables, things like that. Spent a good chunk of time learning all of my business knowledge, the textbook stuff, and really just getting a in-depth hands-on experience on how to purchase, how to market, how to brand, sell, all that stuff. Ended up stepping away from there, and I moved up to Stamford, Connecticut, where I spent 4 years living, and I bought a place there, which I now rent out. And now I am back in Westchester and White Plains, and got a couple different things going on as far as business wise.
Nice, man. You said your early life was in Westchester. I know you come from a larger Irish family, four siblings. Where did you rank in the siblings? Were you one, two, three, or four?
Yeah, so there's four of us. I have an older sister. I was the second, and then I have a younger brother, Kevin.
Okay. So what was it like growing up in Westchester, a large Irish family? I find that, especially for me personally, like a lot of the things in my childhood now I'm beginning to acknowledge have culminated in where I was able to find my purpose. Tell me, maybe a story or something that resonated with you early on that you've carried with you your entire life and throughout your entire journey.
Yeah, so both my parents were one of seven, so huge family and mostly local. So I've got a ton of aunts and uncles and cousins, and we're a pretty just well known family as far as my aunts and uncles. They do a lot of stuff in the local communities and things like that, different businesses. So I think growing up, it was always just like we always had a lot of people around, and I was never a stranger to being thrown into a crowd, and my mom just propping me up. Introduce yourself, Sean, and it's something that is kind of funny. You think about it now. There's a lot of people that they have difficulty in social situations and things like that, and I think my parents did a really good job at kind of throwing us into the fire, if you will. And that's something that we always took with us, and all my siblings and a lot of my close cousins as well. We're very outgoing people. I like to find myself as a an extroverted introvert, if that makes any sense. I love
Totally.
yeah, I love my alone time and my peace and quiet and finding stillness and all that. But when it's lights, camera, action time, I'm ready to go. So it's it's something that definitely I took from childhood growing up.
It's so funny, man, because like that's what I say. I'm a professional extrovert. If I need to be out in a space and when it's talking about the work I'm doing, I can talk your ear off and I can totally engage people and have these conversations. But at my core, I'm an introvert. I'd
Yeah,
rather sit there. I'd rather read. I'd rather just work on myself. I
yeah,
think that's like a super important component. Especially you alluded to the fact that like a lot of people they didn't have that environment where when they're out in social situations
yeah.
that they can interact with others. Um, how do you think as your journey progressed, having that ability that was ingrained just in the environment with your family um, gave you a leg up against not only your competition but just like people in general?
Yeah, so I think it played a tremendous role. Number one, but two, I think there was another component to that I didn't really touch on yet. Was like so I was a lifelong athlete growing up, and I'm still just a fitness fanatic, and I love different challenges and doing just
You're a
crazy
beast.
stuff. Yeah, I try to be, and I try to tell myself I am every day. That stuff you tell yourself is important. But you obviously need to have action that follows it. So I think from an early age, that was another thing that my parents did really well was like they ingrained competition in me, and it wasn't like
Mm,
an unhealthy thing of you have to win or else you're not good. It was just like compete, go out there, and if you're prepared enough and you do the things you need to do, then maybe you'll have a chance and an opportunity of winning or succeeding in whatever it may be. So I think that was another thing that early on, pairing with the two of those, competition and the networking component, things like that, they were kind of a recipe that it's done really well, ever since I've been in my professional career.
dude, that's awesome. One of the things that stuck out that you said to me, that you just said was you got to constantly be telling
Yeah,
yourself that. Um, so I'm a huge proponent of self-talk. I usually I talk about it all the time. And for me, my journey, like I went from kind of beating myself up to just being like, you could do this, you can crush this, and then setting goals that maybe far off, but at the end of the day, if I tell myself I'll get there, I'll get there. Um, how big of a role does self-talk like play in your life? And was there a time when your self-talk was negative, and how did that affect you?
yeah, for sure. I think it's a huge piece of my life. I'm looking at my wall over here in my office. I've got a big picture of Kobe and DMX, and
Nice, nice.
those were two of just my lifelong motivators from an early age. I mean, I'm talking like 6 to 8 years old, and I was listening to DMX, which was like definitely not
Right?
allowed in the household, but I was doing it whenever I could sneak it in, but um, there was a lot of that stuff that I think always played a role where I would look at Kobe and he had his alter ego, that the Black Mamba, and he took himself to a different place. DMX, he would allude to all these dark places, and one of his favorite my favorite lines of his is before light there was dark. So it's like a lot of the times you have to experience the darkness in order to step into the light. And if you're familiar with the darkness and you get comfortable with that, and you're not putting that as something that has power over you, it's something that you can use to your advantage. And that's something that I really, really try to hone in on from an early age. Was to use the dark times, use the bad times, and propel me forward. But to your point of, was there times when I had some bad self talk? For sure, I still have days today where I have some bad
Mm-hmm.
self talk, and there's days where I wake up and I don't sleep enough, or I'm groggy and this and that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a constant battle. I hang all around a lot of successful performers and business guys, and as you know, a lot of people that we were in different circles with.
Yeah.
On the surface, everyone's crushing it. Everyone's elite. Everyone's this. Everyone's that. But
Love
it's
that.
like, there's days where everyone wakes up and they feel like crap, and they have to get themselves to that better place. So I do a couple things. I allow myself at times to feel shitty if I have to. If I'm down, I'll let it happen for a couple minutes, and I'll allow myself, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and then it's done. I don't allow that anymore. It has its time, and let's move on. Let's get better. It's just something like a stop sign I always see in my head, which is
Yeah.
a weird thing. I put like a stop sign up, like a mental stop sign of like, you're done feeling sorry for yourself. Let's go. So things like that, the cold plunge, I do cold plunging every day. I hate it every time before I get in, but once I'm in it, I feel like an animal.
Yeah.
It's just some non-negotiables.
Yes, sir. You said a lot there that I like agree on, man. You're, one thing that stuck out was the talking about on the surface, you see what people put out, and you see, you can. It's difficult to judge what's on the surface because then you have these conversations, and obviously, I know you're one to have like that close circle of friends that you could bounce things off of.
Yes.
How much stock do you put into what people put out?
Others, or you're saying like with myself?
Well, what you just see, like whether it's on social media, how much stock do you put into what people put out on social media?
Maybe 50%. Like, I think there's obviously truth and validity to what people are doing to an extent.
Mm.
If you're out there and you're on a hike and you're working, you're posting something, whatever, like, okay, you're probably doing that, but
Yeah.
um, that doesn't mean that before you put the shoes on and lace them up that you were dreading it for an hour before, and I think there's a lot of that people don't see. So, I would say probably like 50-50, to be honest. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people out there, and I think a big wake up call for me recently was the passing of Casey. um, that was scary to me. And I didn't have a really intimate relationship with him, but I knew him, and we hung out here and there, probably 6 to 10 times maybe. And that's someone on the surface you think was doing great, and he was in many regards, but internally he was really battling a lot. And I think there's a lot of people like that, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations. The platform that you put out, and for people to listen and tune in to the things that really do matter. It's not the P&Ls. It's not the revenue. Your business is doing. It's the deep stuff that really matters.
Yeah, no, dude, I mean, Casey obviously was a huge part of just my sobriety journey, and then we just would have these amazing conversations. And you're right, even when you're in that recovery space and you are peeling back the onion a little bit in front of people, and then it's so deep, and
There's so many
that's something.
layers.
There's so many layers, and the one thing that I've learned over my journey is sometimes you don't even know what you're bottling up,
Mm,
until it finally, it could be from 10 years ago, something that happened that your brain turned off that block, and all of a sudden it comes back to the surface, and you don't know how to deal with it.
yeah,
So you just try to jam it back down, but there's only so much you could jam back down.
yeah,
And I've seen that a lot with people. I think working with ACE, like you do a lot of that personal development. And obviously, that's um, entails facing yourself for who you are.
yeah.
Tell me, I just want to hear actually just your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of guys, especially. I mean, this is just what I know. I'm not a my girlfriend will tell you I'm definitely not an expert at the female brain. I've
Yeah,
got a lot of work to do there for sure, and
I
I'm
think we all
trying
do.
I'm trying every day to get better. So Jackie, I'm trying. But as far as men go, that's really what we special. Dave, Regina, my partner, and me. So we started this in October of last year, of 2023. And it was just kind of an idea we had after we filmed our podcast on his show, the No Snooze podcast, of we just felt something different. We said, like we're meant to do a little bit more than just an episode. And we clicked and we connected and we ended up meeting up for a workout, and we talked a little more. And we put this idea out on Instagram and just said, hey, if we were to do like a men's retreat type of thing, would you be interested? And it was literally just an Instagram story. And we got a ton of feedback from people just replying, yes, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And people that normally you wouldn't hear from. It was a different audience.
Okay.
So we knew it was a little bit different, and we knew it was something that people needed. So we put that out there. Fast forward, we end up locking in a venue. We go up there, we put this video out, and we're like filming ourselves. We're like, this is going to be this elite performers, the amazing weekend, just throwing all the stuff out, before we even had an idea of what we were doing. And that's another thing that we maybe could touch on later, is just like putting pressure out there, whether it be in the public or, an accountability partner, putting a goal or something out there that you have to kind of fill the shoes of, that's really what we did. So we did this whole thing, and got a ton of feedback. And a week later, my dad passed away unexpectedly. And at that point, Dave and I, we were talking, and we're just like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And this is right before I was actually going to Los Angeles. I was going with my buddy Matt Ramos to Brennan Bouchard's event at my Let was speaking
Nice.
at it, all that. We're in the airport at JFK, Matt and myself, and I get the phone call that like, don't board the flight. I'm like, don't board the flight? What do you mean? They're like, Dad's going emergency surgery. You have to come back to the hospital now. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, obviously not thinking that he's gonna pass away. I mean, the day before we were having cake for my brother's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Fast forward, we'll move past all that. The whole thing happened to my dad, and I texted Dave and our event coordinator, Steph Madonia, about a week after my dad passed. And I was like, look, just a heads up. I know this is earth shattering for me, but I need to do this event now more than ever. So just to let you know, this is happening. So it kind of gave me more of a purpose, I think, because I was even battling, obviously, a whole new world of emotions that I never was privy to. So we end up pushing this thing forward. We have President's Day weekend up in New Paltz, New York, private estate. It was incredible, and we kicked the weekend off with a vulnerability session. So we call it VBDs, Vulnerability Breakthrough Development. And you've got guys like me and you that, again, on the surface, very, top performing guys, dudes that are like crazy in shape, guys that are just monsters, physically and professionally. And we opened up the weekend with Dave telling a story about his mother's um, alcoholism and a really, really dark time that he had with her, where he basically hit his breaking point. And I came after him, and I read a journal selection from my notebook in the hospital. We were in the hospital for 26 hours with my father, and thankfully I had a journal with me. And I opened the weekend up with that. So I read this whole thing for the first time out loud. You've got a room of guys, after Dave and I both told our stories, just like sobbing. And at that point, we were breaking out into two groups. I was taking a group, Dave was taking a group. Vulnerability breakthrough development is really, let's get all the dark stuff out there that you're bottling up, like you were just talking about. Let's get it all on the table, and at that point we'll break it all down. We'll give as much feedback as we can, some applicable takeaways and tools, and from there let's take the power away from this thing, that big thing that's
Mm-hmm.
always bothering you, whatever it may be. Everyone shared their stories. We had insane conversations. I mean, it was like a 2 hour thing, and someone came out that they were addicted to drugs, and that day was the first day that they were going to try to become sober. And here we are, whatever, 3 months later, I think we're probably at now, and he's still sober to this day. And
Nice.
there's some other stuff that was just crazy things with family and all that stuff. So, you know, there's so much things I think we all bottle up, and as men, you on the surface want to be, Mr. Knight in shining armor, but you also need those healthy outlets to express to others what you're really battling with and dealing with. And I think the feeling of not being alone, and knowing that other people do struggle with these things that you struggle with, it's a comforting feeling. And if you have the right people around you, they're going to hold you accountable to getting better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think what you just described was trauma treatment.
Yeah.
It's trauma treatment, vulnerability. I think you packaged in a way where these young gentlemen would be able to check their egos and become vulnerable in front of you. And I think that's creating that safe space is half the battle.
Yeah.
Because at that point you're seeing honest emotion, honest emotion coming out, and that's when the breakthroughs happen. Not when you feel sad because this is how society programs you to feel. In this circumstance, you need to feel sad. That surface level sadness will get you through it temporarily, but have you really addressed it? Have you really dug deep? Do you really know how it's affecting everything? So I think that's awesome. Dude, I remember when your father passed away, and I reached out to you, and I for me, I usually just I reach out because and then give people space, and then you were kind enough to reach out and thank me, and
Yeah,
I've lost a
you
parent.
sent a nice message, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I've lost a parent myself. I know what emotions that could bring up, but what was your grief process like?
Huh. I mean, I think I'm still in it, obviously.
Mm,
But I don't know. I think at first, I mean, it was very difficult because, like as I said, my parents were both one of seven. So like that paired with just who he was as a person, it drew literally there was like 3 to 4 thousand people at his wake. So I mean, we were there for 2 days, and it was two sessions both days, and it was nonstop. People online for 2 to 3 hours just to get in. Um, we were in as a family, kind of like a get shit done mode. Let's buckle down. My mom, being the person she is, and the same way my dad was, is just like it's almost like a fault. It's good, but there's faults to it. Where she wants to project this strength in our family and unity for others to see, and I think it served its purpose. Where other people were really really hurting from my father's loss because it was unexpected. Where they would see us, being strong and all that stuff, and it did help them. But I think it also it broke us a little bit when we were doing that. So I think it was at first it was almost all business. There was
mm,
obviously the initial shock, but we buckled down, and that whole week before his wake, from when he passed to the wake, was just strictly business. I mean, we really didn't have much time to grieve during that. Planned everything. Everyone, we had the after thing at the sale house, and it was beautiful. Each one of my siblings spoke, and we said our pieces about him and thanked everyone. But I think I'm sure you could probably touch on this too. I've been leaning into Ace, and it's been super fulfilling for me. Like, thank God I had Ace, to be honest, because it's something that I needed too, more than just whoever was attending me and Dave's summit. I needed it myself. But now, I think now that the dust has settled a little bit, the summit's over. We're doing our monthly stuff and we're building the company, but the big bang is gone now, and the initial shock of my dad's passing is gone now, and it's people carry on with their lives as you have to.
yeah.
The hole, I think, in my heart has become bigger, and it's a pain that I was describing this to Jackie, my girlfriend, the other day. Like, it's a pain that you want to fill that hole and that void so badly, like more than anything, like you've ever wanted to fill, but you can't, and it's like an emptiness inside that it really hurts, man. And it's something
Yep.
that I don't know where that goes, and maybe you could touch on it. You know how you've felt.
Yeah, I mean, I could identify, like when I lost my mom, that was a period of time when I was sober. It was one of the attempts in the past that I tried to get sober. So thankfully, my mom passed away, seeing me as a sober man. Um, I agree. The immediate aftermath, it was a hustle to just get things done, make arrangements. She would be moved. She was in Philadelphia and I was in Connecticut. So that whole transition, I mean, I found out, me and Sarah were in Nantucket when I found out my mom passed away. And I wake up to a message. I call my dad. I call my dad, and he was like, "Mom's gone." And, I'm on an island, so I look over to her and I tell her, and then I go out and we're at her family's home. Like there's their entire family, grandma, cousins, everyone. And I just go up to her dad and I go, listen, like my mom passed away, and her dad was just like, okay. Not many words were said. It was just like, okay, we just kind of literally from that moment
Into motion.
into motion. Boom, I got to the ferry. Boom, we booked the ferry. It was funny because it was one of the most powerful moments of probably me and Sarah's relationship when I was like, she was like, I want to come. And I was like, listen, like, stay here with your family. This is what I would want to be doing right now, spending time with like my family, my parents, and I told her to stay. It was something because I needed to pick up my sister. I needed to make plans. There was a lot of things. And this, I mean, it was early on in our relationship, but just that gesture that she made was just like crazy. And I ended up taking the ferry, going by myself, and then driving by myself from Hyannis all the way back to Connecticut, stopped in Connecticut, and went to Philly right after that. But the whole process, yeah, was very, all right, what do we do next? What do we do next? And even at the wake, I mean, I have a much smaller family than yours. Sometimes, it's funny, I've gone to two funerals over the past month and a half. People in the program who have passed away, Casey being one of them. And, you know, I have a very different perspective when I'm there because I stand and I observe, and I feel like the services really aren't for the family as much as it's for everybody else.
I totally
You
agree.
know, and where it's almost, like on the complete flip side, it's almost like a wedding. Where like it's so stressful for like the bride and groom, boom boom, everyone shows up for a day,
Yeah.
and then all right, the next thing they're married, you get a couple pictures out of it, but it's really for everyone else. And I
So
think a
true.
lot of these pivotal milestones that happen in families are to display that family unity to the public
Hmm.
and to say, hey, we're good.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, the work starts afterwards, where you're like, that's when the thoughts of like, man, like I should have answered this phone call. I should have visited her more in the hospital.
Yeah.
Why did like the hardest part for me was going through voicemails and
Oh,
listening to her voicemails and being
brutal.
like, why didn't I answer her phone call?
Yeah.
Why was I too busy for her that day? That was one of the hardest things that for me. But the immediate aftermath of that, yeah, when life started to become normal, um, yeah, I went into this crazy like grind. You know what I mean? I was barely holding on to my sobriety. That had happened. Just kind of went back into my routine. I was the person who said the eulogy at my mom's funeral, where I got thrust into this position to kind of be the rock of the family,
Hmm.
which I took because previously when I was like drinking and doing all this crazy shit, they never trusted me with that. So I took it and I ran with it in that moment. Um, but it also didn't allow me to just process anything. And then I kind of held onto it for quite a long time until I would finally relapse again. And I think had I dealt with the aftermath after the dust had settled, like been more diligent with what do I need, and put myself first and be more vocal, it would have been better because, I think just of late I've really dealt with it by digging into to my therapy and digging in to the tough questions and accepting and forgiving myself for the missed opportunities I might have had with her.
You have to give yourself grace. How long ago
It was in
was that?
2013, so it was
Okay.
a while ago, and it's crazy because it's 10 years later, man. And when I talk about it now, it's like it's so easy for my mind to switch right back to why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? And I gotta just trust in God and trust in what I'm doing right now is honoring her. You
Yeah,
know?
and I think that's one of the most important things, and that's something I didn't really touch on too. Is just like faith, and for my family, we're a very traditional, Irish Catholic family, and I've kind of transitioned a little bit in my beliefs, and I've gone more towards like the Christian based churches, and it's just something that's the message for me at least is more digestible.
Mm,
But I've been heavily leaning into my faith, as the rest of my family has as well. I don't know. I think there's something to say about honoring like your parent or someone that had passed, and that's truly what I feel with Ace is that like my dad was a man of service. He was not the person like me. It's funny like. I'm out here and I'm actively seeking new relationships and networking and building my brand and my business. And my dad would just be the guy that would have the conversations with people in the supermarket and they remember him for that. And I will be, half the man he is if I could get, any of those type of relationships and connections. It's something that I'll always chase. And that's just the man he was. It wasn't like he was
mm,
trying to go and do that stuff. But I think faith and like you said, just really trusting and believing that you're doing what you should be doing, and from my point of view, just in regards to you, you are, and hosting these conversations and these different outlets for people to have a platform to discuss these things for others to hear and hopefully learn and benefit from. That's God's work, dude. It's
mm.
amazing.
Yeah, it's like every crisis could be an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I see, with Ace, I want to kind of dig into a little bit more of the work that you do with Ace. I think it's just like it's very unique to any personal growth program, especially offered locally, that I've seen. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the um,
Summit
the summit, and I do look forward to the fall summit.
for sure.
So, where do you want to take it?
It's something that Dave and I talk a lot about. We initially were like, all right, let's start this thing. Let's do two summits a year, and we'll see where it goes. We did the summit, and it was just like groundbreaking stuff for him and I and everyone that was there that weekend. And we knew that it was just more than what we kind of set out for. And there was immediate demand for more. People wanted more of it, so we ended up putting together a monthly workout over here at the Sale House, which has been cool. So we're doing an outdoor workout at the Sale House once a month. We're partnering with different brands. We just partnered with Lululemon for the last one. The next one we're partnering with HPLT, the Body Blueprint, and Boundless Nutrition. And we got something with Barry's coming up. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we're partnering with these different brands now on like a monthly basis. And what's been unique about that is we're incorporating women as well. So it's a co-ed event. We're doing a cold plunge, which is from Ice and Iron. My buddy Joe K. So Joe K and Nick Menente, they run the cold plunge session at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday. 8:30 we kick off the workout, Dave and I, and then 9:30 we do a brunch networking type thing. And it's co-ed, and it's been cool to see just some of the breakthroughs a lot of these women are having, whether it be jumping in a
Mhm.
cold tub, or doing some workouts, some stuff that they thought they couldn't do. So empowering these people, these these amazing people that are part of the community, has been something for Dave and I that's just like a drug for us. Him and I, we kicked off the year being. I started with 75 hard, and I said, all right, I'm gonna do 75 hard. I did it a couple years back, and I ended up failing at the summit because I didn't do 2 workouts one day and whatever. But Dave was doing dry January, and we are now. Or today we're 106 days in with no alcohol, and we got to the point like 70 something days in, and I'm like, dude, we gotta go the whole year. Like let's push it. And so we're gonna go the whole year without having a drink, and who knows? Maybe we will. Maybe we won't have a drink after that. But I think just all in all, like to get back to your original question, sorry,
It's okay.
it's a community of people that's just really trying to uplift and help each other. And so I see this going to 4 summits a year, continuing to do the monthly workouts. We do our men's personal development dinner, which is something I've done for 4 years, 5 years, 5 years since 2019. So I started that, way back, and it was something that had 4 guys, and it grew to something that had like 40 to 50 right before we took it over under the ACE umbrella. So we tweaked it a little bit, and we're running that under ACE now. So we've got monthly stuff happening, but I think the big goal is to take it global. We want to do summits down in Tulum, Mexico. We want to do stuff all across the world and try to just impact as many people as we can.
That's awesome, man. Obviously having the sale house as a venue to host some of the events, and that patio out back is beautiful with the view of the bridge. You know, that's awesome that you have all of those things. I kind of want to pivot into talking about the sale house a little bit, just because I myself was also a restaurant person, and I don't envy you as a restaurant
Not
owner.
many do.
I don't. I don't envy. What got you motivated to jump into that venture? And the day to day, man. I know the day to day grind of a restaurant. How do you balance? I think, yeah. How do you balance, man?
So balance is such a funny word, and I go back and forth with balance and just my view of it and whatever. And I think Ed Milet coined this, where he's just like, "There's no balance. Like you're always out of balance, and when you're leaning into something, other areas of your life are gonna slack, and you have to be okay with that." And I think I'm looking at the wall here again at Kobe. Like he wasn't balanced at all on his pursuit. He was strictly grind. Pedal to the metal. Basketball. He wanted to be the best, and he was training nonstop and all that. And the outcome was he's one of the best of all time. The best of all time, in my opinion. But a lot of people
Me
argue
too.
that.
Mine
Um,
too.
but yeah, so I don't think there's balance, to be honest, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. My girlfriend definitely will tell you that's not a good thing. There's the opening year has been difficult with the sale house. We're a little over a year now in. Um, it's tough, man. I mean, it's not, as you know, it's something that needs constant love, constant support, constant leadership. I don't want
Hmm.
to say like oversight and management because I don't really believe in that. I believe more so in like leadership. Um, but it's difficult, and I think with any business you need to have people and systems in place that you can trust, so that you're not constantly there. Our opening year, I was here at a minimum of 100 hours a week, minimum, and physically
I
here
remember
on my
that.
yeah, on my feet doing stuff, and it wasn't healthy. It was not, there was no balance there, and maybe I needed a little more balance, but it's something that's in my blood. And I was 13 years old, and I got in a little bit of trouble with a girl, and my parents were like, you know what, that's it, because I was a really bad kid. Parents and people like loved me, but internally, like I was like a little menace. I was always getting in trouble and doing stupid crap. So I got in trouble when I was 13, and my parents sent me to the restaurant in Dobbs Ferry, Sam's, as my punishment. And so I was a busboy there, and I would work Saturday nights after football games and Sunday doubles. And I did that all throughout high school, middle school, high school, and it was something that was just kind of ingrained in me. And I grew up kind of fantasizing the restaurant world, and looking at those people as like the guy, and I'm like, I want to be that one day. I worked in restaurants for 15 years or so. Throughout college, I bartended, exited college, bartended, bounced at places. And I got to a point where I was like, this is not the life. I really was
Yeah.
spending a
Yeah.
lot of time. And I was like, I never want to do this the way I thought I wanted to do this. And I ended up stepping away from the restaurant in 2019. And 2022, I got approached from a family friend of mine who was looking at this space, the old Sunset Cove here, and it was all up for sale. And he's like, "Look, we're gonna probably take this over as a group." And him and his partners over in Jersey have 4 other places, and they were kind of looking for a local guy to buy in and partner with, and also kind of lead the operation. So I really thought heavily about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm in a place right now where I don't love my job. I don't love who I'm around. I don't feel as though I've got the community of people that I need.
Mhm.
And I was managing a real estate staging company at the time in Stanford. I've had my cleaning company, All In Solutions, on the side since 2017, and that was something I was always doing, outside of my day job.
Mhm.
My day job at the time was just not fulfilling. It wasn't me, and I
Yep.
ended up, stepping into this, and I haven't looked back. It's been a super fulfilling process. I love creating brands and starting things from scratch. So, myself and my partners, we've put a lot of work and effort into it, and thankfully, I have those guys that support the shit out of me, and they know what they're doing. So, I'm just the guy that's piecing it all together as I go.
Yeah, man. I mean, I had a great time when I was there, and I stopped by there early on. So I definitely got to
I'm
pay you another
surprised you had a great
visit.
time there. It was
Dude,
rough
I
for a couple
did. I
months.
did. It was great. I was sitting right there with the view. It was amazing. I mean, I think it's funny. I tell this to people all the time, and it came back from like one of my back in my restaurant days. Most of the time, people don't know you messed up unless you let them know.
Yeah,
And I remember like it was like I think I was working at Capital Grill at the time, and I didn't frame the table before the steaks came out. Like one of the bosses was like, "No steak knife, no steak knife," and I'm like, "They didn't even know, man. You know what I mean? Like all I need to do is just put a steak knife there for them, and
yeah.
like it was fine,
They're good. Yeah,
but like I think that is just like a microcosm of just like a lot of like the bigger picture. I'm not saying like make mistakes and like you're fine. But I'm saying people don't know until you make it super obvious, and a lot of times it's our own head being like, "Oh, this needs to be perfect. Why isn't it like this? This isn't how I would do it." Um, and you think it's bothering that other person when it's not. And that's the pressure that we put on ourselves. How do you deal with personal pressure? I mean, you strike me as kind of as intense. You can be intense sometimes.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah,
and you know, and so like that intensity when you realize, hey, listen, like I'm not getting my point across, and it's my fault now. Give me maybe an example of that, and what you did to like scale back yourself.
I think early on when I was working with the wholesale produce company, I stepped into a leadership position right out of college there, and I was 22 years old, and I was the manager of 50-year-old men that were doing this work for 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
I learned a ton about leadership during those years of where I thought I had to pump my chest and be the loud one. And Jadakiss, I'm a big rap fan, as you can tell. Jadakiss has a line. He's like, "The loudest person's usually the softest," and it's something that I always resonate with. Learning more about leadership as the years have gone on, it's like the people that are barking the most, even like in fights and whatever, like the people that are barking, it's like, dude, you might get slept by some guy who's just quiet and he's humbled and knows his stuff. So I've learned to check my ego at the door. I've made so many mistakes, and I continue to, but I'm very open and honest with it at this point. I just had a staff meeting last week, coming up for the season now, and we're getting kind of geared up. We're doing some renovations at the bar, and there's a lot of exciting stuff happening here, but we're going to be a lot busier than we were even in our first year, which is scary to think about because it was nuts. But I just put it out there forward of like, look, guys, this is the roadmap to success that I'm laying out. Through my experience, through conversations, through training, everything. If you guys know a better way to do something, I'm not a one size fits all type guy. I'm not here to say my way is the only way. You guys are out there in the trenches learning and doing things. So if you see a better way, a more efficient way to do something, I'm all ears because I want to make everyone's life easier. And I think that's a common problem that leaders have is like they need to have power and control over their team. And
Mm-hmm.
the real power is giving your team the control to do things. But you're not able to facilitate an atmosphere like that if you're the guy that's always coming down on people. I try to encourage people to fail forward, if you will. Fall on your face forward. Don't fall backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And if you screw up this thing one time, then okay, let's keep in mind not to do that again, and let's tweak how we do that. Rather than just laying the hammer on people and saying, "Why did you do that?" This is I would do it this way, blah blah. So it's a total ego thing, and I didn't have that for a long time. Like my ego was inflated, and I had to be the Mr. Boss guy. And now it's the opposite. Like I'll let someone else shine rather than me take credit for something, because I'm not the one that's doing. I'm just setting the foundation for people to succeed. That's all I'm doing, and then everyone else, my team is the people who are making it happen.
Dude, I love that. I mean, I think leadership, is so important. Having leadership where you're leading by example. In the restaurant context, I've worked for people where no task was too small for them as a restaurant
Yeah,
owner or a manager. Like if a table needed to be bussed, they weren't delegating; they were going there and doing it themselves because they had to wait at the door.
100%.
Um, you know, and those were the people that I gravitated to the most. I wanted to work harder for.
Yep.
And another big component was when leaders who I've worked with or worked for would be like, "How can I do my job better for you?" And I think um, coachability is so important when you are in a leadership position because you don't know it all. You might know you know what your role is, and you can tell people how to do things maybe a little better and give them advice. But you don't know everything. So just like your team can always get better and there's always room for improvement, there's also, as a leader, you also need to have that same mentality. I think obviously you emulate that with, just a sanctuary, just like hungry to learn more and more about yourself. I kind of want to close with just like a few like pretty quick rapid fire questions. But every time I say rapid fire, it's not rapid fire, which is fine.
Just
Um,
fire.
yeah, just fire, man. The first question I want to ask you, since we were talking about leadership, what are three characteristics that you look for in a leader?
The ego is that's the number one thing I look for. If you have an inflated ego, you're not going to be a successful leader. Your team will not appreciate who you are and what you're trying to do for them. So checking your ego at the door, and it's something with like Ace that we said to everyone. Can I curse? I said a couple curses here.
It's okay.
Okay, so we walked into the Ace Summit, and one of our intense piece, Dave and I, as you alluded to, we're like, guys, if you think you're gonna come here and pump your chest, check your fucking ego at the door and walk out. We'll refund your ticket. And everyone's like, but it was something that we truly meant because we're not here to have the arm wrestling contest and who's better than this guy. It's not that, and leadership is not that. So ego, that's number one. Can't have an ego. Being humble enough to, like you said, get feedback and learn and try to do your job better for your team, for your business, for your company. That's a big thing too. I totally agree with is being coachable and being able to receive feedback. Again, something that I was horrible at when I was a young leader. The last thing I would say is competitiveness, and it's something that I'll never get rid of in my life. Of like, you have to have a will to win. You have to have some
Mm,
grit in you. And if you're just some guy that's, the humble leader, and that everyone, he's nice to everyone and this and that, like, sure, that goes a long way, but it has to be paired with aggressive action and aggressive vision. And you have to be someone that's hungry for success, in my opinion. So for me, I try to just set big challenges, big goals for myself on a daily basis, on a weekly, monthly, annual basis. And if I have other people that are on my leadership team, that's something I want them to do for themselves, because I think you need to have something that's really driving you.
that's awesome, man. Second question: what are three things that immediately invoke a sense of gratitude in you?
Oof. I would say family number one, especially now since my dad's died. Family is something that I just have extreme gratitude towards, whether it be my immediate, extended, a lot of my close friends I consider my family. Faith, my belief in a higher power. That's something that always grounds me on a daily basis, where I have that relationship. I wake up every single morning and I get in my cold plunge and I do 3 to 5 minutes and I say two prayers in there and I talk to my father while I'm in that.
Mm,
And it's something that it brings me down to earth. It's something that connects me with something bigger than myself. So those are two things there, and I would say the last thing is my girlfriend Jackie. She is an absolute warrior for dealing with me on a daily basis because I am a lunatic. But she's someone that she supports the shit out of me, and she's someone that is just has a heart of gold. And I am extremely blessed and fortunate to have a partner like her in my life, because I've experienced bad relationships or just not ideal situations with past relationships, that I've felt my track towards where I want to be, my vision, all that was halted because I wasn't with the right person that was supporting me. So I would say lastly is her.
awesome, man. Family, faith, and Jackie.
Yep.
There you go. And then the last question I wanted to ask you was, for someone just starting out on the journey to finding their purpose, what three pieces of it, three, what three, I'm gonna start over. For someone just starting out on their journey to find their purpose, what are three pieces of advice that you would give them?
Get still. And get still is it's a big broad thing, but it could be done in a variety of ways. So for me, my stillness is the ice bath, the prayer, the talking with my father. I do meditation quite a bit as well. That's my stillness, and I have so much insight when I am locked into those things. So get still. I think you learn a lot about yourself when you're able to step away from your phone. You're able to step away from the world and really just build a relationship with yourself. For some people, that's journaling. For some people, that's going to a yoga class, a workout, whatever it is. Whatever your stillness is. So I would say get still. Number one. Two, get uncomfortable. I think there's so much value in providing yourself with intentional discomfort, and not to a detriment, not to something of like, oh, I'm going to go out there and drive my car into a tree and I'm uncomfortable. It's the intentional discomfort of doing the hard things that you should be doing. That's going to further your path. So for me, that's the cold plunges, that's the workouts, that's going to networking events when I don't want to. That's going and having those conversations, jumping on podcasts. When I have a crazy day, taking an hour out of my day to do these things. Because it is uncomfortable for me to say, slow down, chill out. Let's whatever. So there's a lot of different ways for people to get uncomfortable. So get uncomfortable is number two. Number three. Got get still, get uncomfortable, get hungry, get hungry.
Mm,
I think if people aren't where they want to be, if people are, questioning if they're doing the right thing and whatever. Um, you're most likely not on the right path if you're sitting there thinking, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. You're not hungry enough. Get hungrier. The way I do that is I surround myself that are better than me in different areas. I have an inner circle and a extended circle of guys that do so many things so much better than I do, and I look at them for inspiration to help me keep my internal motivation going and to further myself along that path. So guys like you that are hosting these awesome charity events and things like that, that's stuff that I look at and I'm like, damn, it's not something that I envy. It's something that I'm like, that's awesome. And maybe one day I could get to that level in this realm, but you can't also have that feeling of being less than and things like that. That self talk, like we talked about earlier, is like
Mhm.
so important too. Of like, yeah, maybe you need to do better in certain areas, but remind yourself of who the f you are, and become that beast.
Dude, I love that. You know, I'm so grateful to have you, man. I just see you just chase your purpose with just such humility and just grace. And, I really am honored that you came on. If anybody wants to get in touch with my guy, go to www.acesanctuary.com or visit the sale house on a Friday night at 7 o'clock and ask for his attention. And I'm sure he'll give it to you. But my man Sean, dude, I'm so happy. Thank you for coming on, buddy.
Or you
I
could
gotta
go
go.
to the Equinox locker room and find our flyers somewhere.
Yeah, oh my God, that was wild.
I don't know who put that there, but whatever. No, dude, listen, man, I appreciate you, and like I said, I love what you're doing and everything you're putting out there. It's awesome. So thank you for having me on. I'm super humbled and appreciative that you asked me to be here, man.
Yes, sir. I'll visit soon.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon, man. Thank you.